I am a pastor's daughter who is a lesbian, and surprise, those things don't mix very well. And so my own journey to try to find acceptance through my non-affirming parents, this has been a struggle for a very long time. I spent many years away from the church and then revisited the church in Los Angeles, where we're supposed to be more progressive and liberal. But I recognized that the same things were happening in these churches, but now it's the bait and switch thing, where it's like, they're not even telling you that they're not affirming, that all of a sudden you spend months, years with these people and you become friends, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I can't get married here. Yeah, I can't lead. I'm less than. It's like, this is wrong.
Yeah, and coming in with this whole notion of come as you are, you're welcome and you're accepted, but you're going to go to hell, right?
Yo, hey, what we gon' slap today? Yo, hey, what we gon' slap today?
All right, yo. What up? The world may not need another podcast, but it definitely could use a slap. Welcome to Slap the Power.
Our new show from the Slap Podcast Network that crosses artistry with advocacy through the universal power of music, comedy, movies, and beyond.
That's right, and I am beyond honored to have on my right the co-pilot for this ride. You may know her from The Voice. You may know her from, I don't know, poli-sci degree from Yale. Who knows? But she is one of the most amazing humans on planet Earth, Miss Maya Sykes.
And you may know my co-creator from, I don't know, this amazing band called Vintage Trouble. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Also, he is the creator behind the Slap Podcast Network. Please welcome Mr. Rick Barriodil.
Gracias. Each episode of Slap the Power, we aim to fuse the unique power of artists who advocate through their art and their story to try and raise awareness and resources for some of the most critical issues of our time. And on the show today, the mistranslation that shifted culture. And this was when I found out about it from our associate producer, Bree. She worked on this documentary, and it fascinated me. One of my favorite scenes in West Wing was kind of based on this topic, and Maya is definitely deep in this topic. So
I really find this topic so intellectually stimulating for me because of the ways in which the Bible has been misappropriated for political gain. And that trend dates back several thousand years and is still a trend that's going on now. I think that this specific discussion is really timely to the political climate that we have now because it was so easily dismissed, and the lie that came from it was so easily politicized and changed the course of history. So we're specifically talking, if you don't know already, we're talking about the text from the Bible that have been used to condemn homosexuality. These texts specifically are Genesis 19, Leviticus 18:22, and Corinthians 6:9. So these passages that have been used to condemn homosexuality have been cited in a specific way and bastardized in a specific way to get a politicized message across for political gain. And that message is homosexuals will not inherit the kingdom of God. This is not true, however, if we go back to the text in its original form. And here to help us shine a light on that is this amazing woman who sought out from her own journey to seek why the Bible was condemning her and if they actually were. So our director is none other than the amazing woman who directed the documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. Now, let's just talk about this film for a little bit. 1946 has won several awards, including the Audience Choice Award at the Cleveland International Film Festival, Best of Fest.
Woo, that's a good one.
That's a good one at Palm Springs International Film Festival, and that's a huge one.
Yeah.
And the Audience Award at the DOC NYC, which is America's largest documentary festival award.
That's right. We are honored to have in studio today the director of this beautiful documentary, Sharon Roggio. Thank you. Rocky! Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, those are all wonderful film festivals. I'm just going to brag a little. We also got
Please.
the Audience Choice Award at Boston.
So cool.
And the
Flex.
Jury Prize.
Flex.
Yes.
And in Miami at Outfest Shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been wonderful. The audience has really responded to the work, which, as you all know, being artists, when you put your soul into something and you want it to be received well, to have the audience respond the way that they are doing all over the nation. And we went to the British Film Institute in London, and we got a standing ovation there.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah.
We hope to do more countries soon.
And it's fascinating to me, and I also want to put this sort of disclaimer in there. The objective here is to find the Overton window. I make jokes all the time, about the evangelicals kind of pushing back and everything. But so many of my friends kind of fall into this category, and I really do want to approach this with an open heart and an open mind. But after watching the documentary, it's not a faith thing. This is written word and mistranslation of the written word that only happened and really came to what we know today in 1946, the title of the film. And if you can, start off and tell us how you tripped over this yourself, because I just found out about it, and it's fascinating because you realize this is all just it's a mistranslation.
Yeah, and thank you for recognizing the tone of the film, because we do understand that this is not an attack on anybody's faith. This isn't an attack on God. It's not an attack on your beliefs. This is about a real mistranslation that impacts our real reality, that we have the evidence to show how this was done. And so if we can start from there, hopefully we can have a bigger conversation. So that was a little bit of a catalyst for me as well to get involved, because I'm a product of religious trauma, however you want to say it. I am a pastor's daughter who is a lesbian, and surprise, those things don't mix very well. And so my own journey to try to find acceptance through my non-affirming parents, which means they don't affirm me fully in my identity. I can be a participant in some church cultures, but I'm not fully equal. And so this has been a struggle for a very long time. I spent many years away from the church and then revisited the church in Los Angeles, where we're supposed to be more progressive and liberal. But I recognized that the same things were happening in these churches, but now it's the bait and switch thing, where it's like, they're not even telling you that they're not affirming. Then all of a sudden you spend months, years with these people and you become friends, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I can't get married here. Yeah, I can't lead. I'm less than. It's like, this is wrong.
Yeah, and coming in with this whole notion of come as you are, you're welcome and you're accepted, but you're going to go to hell, right?
Exactly. And all sins are equal. It's like, first of all, it's not a sin.
Yeah.
So once I started to slap back, right, at this church that I was going to in Los Angeles, I started to really ask the questions and really doing the digging in the Bible. And I found people who've been doing the work well before me. Yeah. And I stumbled upon Kathy and Ed, who stumbled upon at Yale University these archives, because they asked the question first: who made this decision to put the word homosexual in the Bible, and why? Why did it end up in 1946? Was it political? Was it cultural? Was it ideological? So they asked a question. They started doing the work, and I was just a product of it myself, trying to answer my own questions. And so as a filmmaker and somebody who's been working in film for a long time, I felt that it would have been irresponsible of me not to do this film once I learned that there is a tangible mistake that we can start from. This is important for me and my family. I know it's got to be important for so many other people. Millions. So I quit my job, just started putting my own money in, and was like, I have to do this no matter what, so, and I did.
Now, I have a question specifically related to the film. One thing that I found super fascinating is that before this 1946 divergence, homosexuality in the Bible was referenced as homosexual deeds, and those were given, that name or that moniker was really given to acts of deviant sex. So it became the tie that homosexuality was then therefore tied to acts of deviance, like acts of pedophilia. So it seemed like there was a direct correlation between demonizing homosexuality by attaching it to acts of depravity that were really meant to take away choice, to be abusive. And then we have this, on top of that, it being this divergence. So I want to talk a little bit about how that came to be and how this divergence was easy to happen because there was already the tonality of homosexuality being mistranslated because there wasn't the right words. You know, we look at the Bible originated in 3 texts, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. So the language did not exist to even say what homosexuality was. So in its early translations, a lot of acts of pedophilia or acts of power, or acts of abuse were tied to the word homosexuality. So it seems like this divergence was even easier to do because of that climate. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure.
Especially for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when Kathy and Ed first went in to ask these questions, they felt that there was malice attached to this. They're like, I know that the translators are going to get these dirty homosexuals and they're going to, this is politicized and all this stuff. But what they found was the translation committee, when they were challenged on it, actually admitted that they made a mistake in everything you just said: abuse, exploitation, power over someone. And the King James says those who use and abuse others. Oh, that's actually, that's Eugene Peterson in the Message. I'll get back to the King James in a minute. But the point is abuse of others. And so what they found was the translation committee team actually saying, no, we got this wrong and we can do better. And then they changed it to sexual perverts, which still isn't a good translation. But you hit the nail on the head. It's like when the translation committee made the decision to put the word homosexual in the Bible for the first time, they were looking into the culture and they were like, okay, so we know we have abusive sex. We have the malakoi and the arsenokoitai, which you'll have to see the movie a little bit, and maybe we can get into the weeds with that in the Greek in a little bit.
And that was fascinating, too, when I learned that one. Yeah.
And it's men who are having sex with men, but what kind of sex is this? It's illicit sex, it's power, and it's usually non-consensual. There's a lot of these things going on there. But in the 1930s, when the translation committee team first looked to do this work, they looked into the culture. They said, who is these abusers? And they were like, oh, homosexual. And so, yes, it was easy to pen that in. But now what we can see from the notes is the translation committee actually saying, oh, wait a minute. You're right. We made an error. And so every single Revised Standard Version Translation Committee from the 70s on, they realized in 1959 when they first got the letter, they were able to publish again in 1971. They had a 10-year gap because of a contract issue, so they couldn't even publicize.
10 years. How many Bibles went out in 10 years?
Exactly, and that's the issue, and we talk about that in the film as well. And then by the 70s, when the other Bibles used the RSV as their root text and then started to put the word homosexual, not just in 1 Corinthians 6:9, but in the 6 different clobber passages where it just doesn't belong, that's where we see malice for the first time. And the Jerry Falwell camp getting in bed with the Republican Party and politicizing it and politicizing gay people for the first time in history.
Now, it seems like the people who specifically politicized this and specifically championed the bastardization of the Bible, the Living Bible version, which is basically just a dumbed down version of the Bible, now correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the biggest proponents of those idioms had their own scandals of abuse of sexual power. Am I wrong?
Well, so we see in the Living Bible, too, that the author of that, it was a Tyndale publication, and the guy who put it out was just trying to make a Bible that was more readable to his family,
children,
to his children,
yes.
Right. And so we think we can just assume from the evidence in the data that there wasn't malice attached to those mistakes as well. It was ignorance, yes. Assumptions, as Kathy would say in the film, yes. But malice, no. We don't see the malice until the Falwell camp said, oh, look, we can run with this.
Yes, and I just found like those people who championed it.
Oh, right. So, yeah, like
seem
Billy
to
Graham.
have their own scandals
Yes.
with
Yeah.
sexual abuses of power.
Oh, well, yes. And that's another
And
story.
I
yeah.
just find that
Yeah.
Yes.
interesante.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we see it happening today, and so the transgender community is being used as a scapegoat. And that's the
Absolutely.
biggest political talk right now. I mean, Trump said it recently in one of his speeches. He's like, I talk about taxes, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
I say transgender, and they go nuts. And it's
Yeah.
like,
You're putting the game out there, man.
And 2021 was the most dangerous year
Yeah.
on record for transgendered individuals.
so it's completely politicized. They're using it for power. They don't care about us at all. And there are people who are using it in this way. But again, we wanted to make a film that wasn't vilifying everyone, because there are innocent people, too, who believe these things,
Sure.
this propaganda that are just they fall victim to it as well. And so we want to lead with empathy and conversation and try to get to the academics of it as best we can to encourage bigger conversation, to shift our culture away from politicizing groups of people.
Sure.
I thought that was so beautiful, especially using your father as the example, because you both have so much empathy for each other, even though you're clearly at an impasse about the idea. But I think that the wonderful portion about this film for me was it opening dialogue, whether or not, because I do feel that our way over is dialogue and just keep having the conversations. And so I did feel that as the hopeful entity, even if your father doesn't cross the rainbow bridge, if you want. Yeah. But I did think just the fact that he was saying, you know, I do feel empathy, even though I don't understand, and I've chosen to say that this way is right for my own mind. But it does lead me to this next question. How do you change the minds of people who've decided not to change their minds?
Sure. So one of the reasons we wanted to get my dad in the film, and I'm so grateful that he was in the film, not only just to show the love that we have for each other and to mirror for other people what our struggle is not unique. And this goes on in a lot of families. And so my dad's lesson would be, don't kick your child out, love your child. And my lesson would be, okay, if it's safe for you and you can be in relationship and you feel it can be healthy in some ways, be in relationship. But one of the other most important things is we know, and I know we're not going to, my dad's never going to change his mind. He made that very clear in the film. And so there are going to be a lot of people whose minds are not going to be changed. And that's okay. They're allowed to stay in their beliefs. And again, this is not an attack on anybody's beliefs. But once your beliefs start to impede on my
policy,
on my basic human rights, now we have a problem. And so the goal is to have, there's enough people in the church that are already, this is tugging on their heart, where now we can have the head match the heart. We've got the work, we've done the work, here you go. Let's move this group who are willing to recognize new information and say, yeah, we've been doing this wrong. And the church has a long history of doing it wrong. They've been on the wrong side of history for many, many, many things, you know. So let's just admit what it is. Sometimes we get scripture wrong. Even Galileo died in jail because of the way
house arrest. Because he said that the earth revolves around the sun.
And there are 5 clobber passages that put him in jail. That, you know, and so it's like we have to catch up sometimes.
Yeah, incredible props for putting yourself out there so vulnerable. In the story, I just thought that was it was beautiful, and I know how hard that that it clearly was, but it is in the case of your dad. You know, like you said, you're loved, but then with a condition attached to it,
Correct.
right? And this is where the policy to me from the Jerry Falwell and the Reagan era became it is politics because it was power. They when you know something is mistranslated wrong or something like that, to then address it head on would be, good faith argument. To then instead use it as power and keep pushing something that is not actually accurate. At a certain point, it becomes disingenuous, and we're not even talking about the written word anymore. And that's where, like for me, I didn't even know the Malachi was like translated as soft and lazy. Right? It wasn't a lifestyle. I think, or it was to describe the way somebody is. And
or a coward. We do this today. You're a sissy. You're a pansy. And so the worst thing you can be as a man is a woman. And so it was feminizing a woman. So some of it could be slang too. We don't really know what the intention of these words and the use of them was. It an actual prostitute, malakoi, or somebody who's being a young pederasty, a young boy being used for sex, or is it? And it has been proven that it's in the context of you're just lazy, you're a coward, you're not a man. Seriously, we've been doing it for years.
That's the truth. And we were talking about this kind of off camera. When you can control power, the Republican Party had to find an issue. They continue to do it. They have to find an issue to keep people in the party because they're not leading with policy. They're not leading with ways to help you. They're leading with ways to have you upset at the way somebody else lives, right? And that's at the core of it, is they've been able to sort of hold on to this minority rule with respect to the majority of Americans, Republicans included, are it's an issue where we've definitely softened in a lot of ways on homosexuality, but the power is still controlled by the minority.
But that's usually the case, is that the easiest way to control the masses is by making them as stupid as possible. So going off of their fears, right? Exaggerating them, and then going to the lowest common denominator is the way that most people, Republican or not, have maintained power.
Yep.
And I feel like the idiom of language and the access to books has always been the play card of any person who underneath their political agenda really has, megalomaniac tendencies.
Sure.
So there's one thing that I really loved when the theologist David said, you find him, and he said that I used to think that I was called to ministry despite the fact that I was gay, and now I realize I was called to ministry because I was gay.
Yeah.
I think that was such a beautiful moment in the film, but it really highlights the PTSD that so many, especially gay Americans, experience at the hands of religion. So what advice can you give those individuals who have experienced that kind of PTSD but are still looking for a Christian source? What hope can we offer to those people? Because I felt the film definitely gave me a cadence of hope that I would love to spread to.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are tons of resources available for anybody who does want to still maintain a faith connection and or even just a community of people who have gone through the same thing. There are resources on canyonwalkerconnections.com, which is Kathy Boldock's website, and Free Mom Hugs is good for mothers and parents and fathers. Also, there's a Free Dads Hugs who want to support their same-sex attracted children, and these are secular or religious. So just know that there are people doing the work, and there are people like you who you can start community with. And if you are in a place where you can be in relationship with your loved ones who are oppressing you, again, make sure you're in a safe space, make sure you're in a healthy headspace, make sure you've done the work first. And it's a shame that we have to take on some of this responsibility sometimes to maintain the relationship.
Sure.
But if if that loved one is important to you enough, then, do the work, meet with the right people, get in the right headspace, and just show love.
Yeah.
Just show love to your loved one as much as you can and let them see you for who you are.
Amen.
And if they can't see you for who you are, get away.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, again, we want to make sure you're in a safe space. And unfortunately, sometimes our chosen family, they say blood is thicker than water. That's actually more about your chosen family, not the actual
Facts.
bloodline. Yeah.
I also wanted to highlight belovedarise.org, which is an organization focused on helping youth embrace their faith and queer identity. I think that it is so important to allow an individual to foster those things together, because so much of your identity sometimes comes from what your faith is, and to be censored from finding that balance feels just so mean and crippling. I just see the negative effects, especially on queer youth. Our youth in general are struggling.
Yeah.
We have to remember we're looking at an entire generation of children that have no social skills whatsoever because the last 3 years of their lives were robbed. The chance to ask somebody out to a dance, have a crush on someone, to go to grad night, to go to all of these important milestones that got taken away. And I can't imagine what it's like to also be living in a time in which your identity is politicized everywhere around you. That's got to be frightening. You know?
No, Beloved Arise is a wonderful organization, and I'm glad you mentioned it. It's an interfaith for queer youth of faith, and so all faith religions are welcome, all faith beliefs, and it's just a way for people to, again, get community in that age group. And that was started by one of our executive producers, June Young is his name, and he owns a company in Seattle called Zoom Communications, and is a queer Christian who just really has a vision for helping queer youth. And I couldn't be more excited to be connected with the organization.
Yeah.
I think queer Christian is a term that many people don't know exist, especially if you are one. So maybe we should elaborate on that. What does it mean to be a queer person who is Christian in today's market, in today's era?
Sure.
Great question.
Yeah. So a lot of people would say there's no such thing. You can't be
Right.
gay and Christian, or LGBTQ and Christian, or trans and Christian. You have to put aside that identity, and that's Satan and silliness and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not true.
No.
You can identify and have a walk with God in whatever way you and that relationship with God see fit, and hopefully in a healthy way, obviously. But no, they can't take that away from you. If you want to have a relationship with God, you can absolutely hold on to your LGBTQIA identity and hold on to your faith identity. And there are organizations out there that will celebrate you instead of just tolerating you. And that's a very important difference. And that's something that we need to know. There's also an organization I want to shout out called churchclarity.org. And if you want to go to a church, you can check on Church Clarity to make sure, because they will list whether a church is affirming or not, or the ones who are the bait and switch where they don't list it on their website. If they don't list on their website whether they're affirming it or not, they're probably not affirming.
Okay,
So
good to know.
Is there a line in between what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a line between the ones that are affirming and the ones that aren't.
They're like, come as you are, but they're really like on some Hillsong
Right.
type joint.
And we just did some research. Yeah, the 100 top churches in
you're
the
right.
United States, right, are non-affirming, and Hillsong is one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got a lot of work to do.
Listen, Hillsong, that documentary, I see a whole nother list of documentaries that's going to happen on them little mega churches and they mega ways.
That's
so
just
there's a documentary
capitalism.
on Hillsong?
Ooh, it's good.
Oh my God. Okay.
You got
yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's on Hulu, but
Yep.
that's not spiritual growth. That's capitalism.
Absolutely.
And
But that's a whole point, I think, is the minute they put in the idea of mega churches, they changed from actually trying to help people celebrate and spread the word of God, and they just wanted membership. And so
Yeah.
once it got down to membership, they went to a capitalist model.
100%.
And once they went to a capitalist model, the issue with that, in my opinion, and just the way that I'm seeing it, is it's not sustainable. If you're attaching a model on something that's meant to be of faith and of community, that's of capitalism and of monetary gain, eventually it's going to crumble on itself because neither system supports the other.
Yeah.
Greed.
And we are.
Isn't that a deadly sin? Greed.
Right.
But you know,
That is a sin.
they get real
Yeah.
sanctified on what they consider a sin.
Yeah.
So somebody call out the sin.
I mean, isn't adultery like in the Ten Commandments?
Yeah.
I mean, all the churches.
That's all
should
right
just-
if
yeah.
you're a president and a 5 times divorced game show host.
I was like, first of all, if you looking like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich with your wife and baby mama choices,
Right. You.
like every time you come up there, I just want to be like Jerry, and I know that's wrong.
I think you did hit on kind of, we are sort of crossing a Rubicon, I feel like, also with, they just, it was keep going left, and now it seems, because everybody is kind of, like I said, the majority of Americans are fine with, homosexual relationships and marriage. The majority of them, our laws federally don't reflect this because of the way the Electoral College is structured, from a power standpoint towards the rural places. And back to your point on, if you can keep people uninformed, you can control them. But I do feel like we're hitting a Rubicon, because on the trans issue, it's a non-issue. It's something that can grab the headlines. I saw something where there was one girl or one boy in Alabama that had wanted to, I think, play on the girls' team, or vice versa. A girl that wanted to play on the boys' team and didn't, and that ultimately created this movement through the Alabama Republican state legislature that is trying to outlaw this. It is anecdotal at best
100%.
when you have one thing.
Yeah, we're talking, a
it's-
percent of a percent.
And we're also talking
yeah.
about children. Like half
Children.
the time they don't even know.
Yeah.
Like I remember sitting, I was watching my niece's soccer game, and at the time she was 6, and she was like, I'm going to marry my best friend. And she doesn't, I mean, if I ever was like, oh, she's gay, oh, she's 6. Like, how come these kids just can't be children?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why
Right.
is this? You're politicizing the wrong things and not
Yeah.
pay it, but you're doing it because by politicizing that, you can grasp control because you can go to shock value.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like all this is shock value to get the most enraged people hollering.
Yeah.
And then you can sway the country.
Yeah.
So
Man.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, what's next for you after this? What's next on the horizon, and how do we help champion this fight?
So we're working on a distribution deal. We don't have that yet. We don't have a sales agent. So if anybody knows a way that we can get this film seen to the masses by as many people as possible, we have some wonderful opportunities coming up. I was letting Rick know we did get into Outfest, which is in Los Angeles. Thank you. And so we play on July 22nd at 4:15 at the DGA. And
Yeah.
that's a great opportunity. But we just would really, the best way to support us is follow us on social media at 1946themovie.com across all social media platforms, and keep sharing, telling your friends and family. Watch out, because we are going to release. If we don't get distribution, we're going to self-release.
Okay.
And so we'll see what that looks like, and we're making our decision in the next 6 weeks. So
Fantastic.
yeah, watch our pages. We'll be making announcements soon so we can make it available to as many people as possible. So what's next for me is the Impact Campaign, which means making sure that the film is available in underprivileged communities that might not be able to hold a screening, or big cities. So we can go to small town Alabama and Mississippi and Oklahoma and, Utah, wherever we can go, and even all around the world. We've got ambassadors, we call them, people who've been reaching out because we have a huge social media following, and people who have been following the film for years. So we've got ambassadors in South Africa, in New Zealand, in Australia, in the UK, in Spain. And so we're going to start initiating. The United Church of Canada is first on our list, actually. And so,
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. They've actually been very supportive. And so...
You're undoing. That's what this movie
I'm
is
still
so
working.
great at. Yeah, no. Well, it's what this film is so great at. You're basically undoing this sort of pamphlet kind of propaganda twist on things that has caused so much trauma and so much destruction in the family structure unnecessarily, and it's causing this fight in between unnecessarily. And I appreciate you bringing this to light, and we're going to do everything we can. We'll put anything will be in our show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
One
for
more
sure.
thing, though, we also are working on a workbook discussion guide. So once the movie is worldwide available, which again we're working on this year, there will be a pamphlet that you can download and or get a booklet, so you can write in and take notes. But it'll define some of the things that we mentioned in the film that maybe help you give it a little bit more understanding. We'll also answer questions like, well, homosexual wasn't there, but it was always a sodomite, and that's the same thing. Well, no, it's not. So
Right.
Absolutely.
we'll
Right.
answer
Exactly.
that, and just some of the top questions that we get. They're like, what about one man, one woman, the biblical view on marriage, and things like that we're going to make sure that those questions are answered. Some other thought processes are put in there, and then extended resources so people can really dive into this either individually or as a community.
And I think that this is the way, because the issue to me is that 54% of the nation has lost the ability of comprehension, so they don't have the ability to be critical thinkers. And this ideal is being slowly and systemically farmed out of our education system. So we really don't have the tools
yeah.
to be critical thinkers at a national level. So the thing that I really want to point to is a quote from your film, which says, as long as we are talking to one another, there is still hope. I think that what you're doing is helping foster conversations.
Yes.
And if we can make conversations happen, as opposed to us just yelling at each other,
Right.
maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. And abusers with themselves with mankind was the King James. I just had to add that in there
Yes.
if anybody
Please.
was keeping notes.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we'll do is we'll lay out what 1 Corinthians 6:9-10, what it's been translated over time. And as we can see, it's not homosexual. So.
No.
No,
And
no.
it's a huge, I remember this from my own time at Yale. You could check out in the Sterling Library, you could check out old versions of the Bible from different monk orders, right? So they had a Frangelican copy, they had a Franciscan copy, and you could get 1 hour of time in the Sterling Library, which is not that far from the Beinecke Library, and they were hermetically sealed in these boxes, and it almost looked like, do you remember the movie Seven, where they would illuminate the books? It looked like that because of the way that the books are lit, and you have to wear gloves, and you could turn the pages with these special, and if you look at whole passages, right, from one order maybe 400 years prior to another order, there's words missing, there's different just from the Latin and so just the transcription of it. This was a huge game of telephone, so of course a lot of words got lost, and this seems like not that hard of a leap to make logically, and yet people will fight you tooth and nail about the word of the Bible. I wonder why that is.
Well, that gives them a sense of security because they know they have all the answers. And that's what we want. We want answers. The unknowing is what's fearful.
We want an anchor.
Yeah. And so that gives them power because they say they know. And it's just a false assumption. And it does more damage for the individual and for our society. Yeah. So if we can, again, break these ideas without pulling away somebody's faith or really having them feel like we just pulled the anchor up.
Or degrading them.
Exactly.
I think that's the thing that my takeaway from the film was a real attempt at trying to give as much empathy while educating, which I think is the move, you know?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was hard, as you can imagine. And I went through my angry periods, as we all do. Sure. And sometimes I have fits of rage and I'm angry at this whole issue. It's very frustrating, but we can't go into this with anger. We have to go into this with our heads on straight and
open heart. I mean, try.
Or gay. We can have our heads on gay. Right. And our heart in the right place and mature. As Dr. Parker says in the film, we have to handle these things maturely. And hopefully the right people are going to be attracted to it.
Amen.
At the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaway is that if you remember that God is love, right?
That should be
then that should be it.
Yeah, that should be it.
That's my favorite line from a Luther Vandross song. First thing I know, God is love. The next thing would be He loves me. And I always thought that was pretty
so good.
All right, so before we let you go, we play this silly little game, and it's because we serve up so much kale here. We're cutting it with chocolate cake. But you did agree ahead of time to do this. So the deal is to pick two cards and put them face down.
Got it.
Got them face down?
Yep.
All right, and I got my two. I'm going to do them right together. And the only deal is, with the cameras rolling, if you don't want to answer the first one, you have to answer the second one. So sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're hard. Shout out to Table Topics. We appreciate the silly little game, but we will defer to you. Go ahead, Rocky.
All right. So it says, what one fear would you like to conquer?
Oh, that's easy, right? Probably.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? I
don't know.
That's okay. Yeah.
What am I afraid of?
What is your one fear you'd like to conquer?
Well, do I really want to conquer it, though? That's the thing. It's like my biggest fear is sharks.
Okay, sure.
So I just don't go in the ocean.
Okay, fair.
So maybe should I try going in the ocean a little bit?
Yeah, maybe just go in the ocean where there aren't sharks.
I mean, but you saw what's happening with the orcas.
Saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I surfed all of my life until I moved out to the West Coast. The surfing on the West Coast, because the water's a lot colder and stuff, sharks just started showing up so much closer to shore. I was out one day and I saw a guy get bit on his leg, and I was like, that's it. That's a wrap for me. I can't even go in the water anymore without just thinking I got away with it, because I've seen too many things where now, like, sharks are coming up on shore, the orcas are coming up on shore because the food is there's no food for them in the ocean. It's going away. We haven't been replenishing. So I understand that's a tough one to get up.
I'm never going to get up. I'm never going to do that. So I don't need to conquer that fear.
What about you, Maya? Go ahead. What's your fear you want to conquer?
Okay, conquer a fear. Okay, I don't know that I can conquer this fear either. I'm scared of the police, and I've always been scared of the police because I haven't had the best incidences around police, and I've seen, police brutality pretty much my whole life. That being said, I've had some lovely encounters with the police, so I'm trying to see a new way about that and not take a systemic fear that has definitely plagued me my whole life. Let me think negatively about my relationship with the police, because we have to have one. So that's something I hope to find in my own lifetime. But yeah, that's definitely one of my biggest, and it's a justifiable
valid.
fear.
Totally.
I think for me, other than sharks, I think the thing that I probably have to conquer is what I've been working on is almost a sort of a sense of being more vulnerable in the face of it is my the nature of me as an empathetic person is to be vulnerable first. This town will teach you to be vulnerable last.
Dead last. Dead ass last.
Dead ass last. And the thing is, I've realized how that has then changed me in other ways. And so as I've been backing towards this place is one of the things why we kind of created this as well, is a space to sort of be vulnerable, because you realize we're all fighting some kind of war, and we need community, and putting it out there like you did on the film.
Thank you.
is a way to draw people who are struggling with the same problem and realize that there is help and there is light. So
Yeah. I mean, with the same question, I think my biggest fear that I can't, it's not something I have to conquer, something that we have to conquer as a society. And the biggest fear is the 2024 election.
Yeah.
Oh, girl.
I am scared as hell. And so
It's a
we
coin
need,
flip.
more people.
Wait a minute, Cracker can run from jail? Wait a minute, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Watching movies like this, producing movies like this, getting in conversation, getting involved in politics. We can't keep quiet anymore, because there's something we learned from the film 1946. The culture wars are very much alive, and that's the only thing that seems to be driving this election.
And they've been alive for quite some time, and it definitely seems like at the core of it is white male supremacy.
100%. And Christian supremacy.
Yeah.
So the next movie,
But I feel like it's white male supremacy under the cloak of Christianity. Like, I don't even think they don't even represent these Christian ideals.
No.
So I'm like, that's the hardest part for me. Is that if Donald Trump walked the walk that he's trying to sell to these people, I'd respect it more. But I'm like, you don't do any of these Christian ideals, but you want to condemn all these people, because by condemning them, you will have the fervor of these folk back here, but you're a huge hypocrite and you don't care about these people at all.
It's power. They got 3 Supreme Court justices for life. That's what it's about.
Oh, absolutely.
So we can't do any better than that. So we are gonna end it right there. We're gonna put everything about 1946, this brilliant film, in our show notes. And again, just Rocky, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your time with us. And we appreciate. Let us know. Were you gonna say something? What's next? Are you?
We are working on a second film. Jenna
breaking news here. Breaking news here on Slap the Power.
And we want to address these issues of power and Christian nationalism, Christian supremacy, and this idea of, are we a Christian nation or not? And so the next movie is called God Nation.
Okay, and she's going to be coming here. One of the first. You got to
Part
come
2.
here first. Yeah, one of the first ones.
We need to recap. You know
That's right. That's right. We'll be doing that one soon.
So we also want to point out that you can also lend your support for these issues by supporting the Trevor Project, and for the aforementioned beloved Arise.org site. You can also help this film by going to 1946 the movie, and please stay active in this. This fight is just at the tip of the iceberg, so we're going to need all dogs in this fight, and we can win if we just keep communicating with each other. So thank you again for that lesson.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah!
Slap the Power is written and produced by Rick Barrio-Dill and Maya Sykes. Executive producer Duff Ferguson. Our senior producer is Sabrina Seward. Associate producer Bree Corey. Audio and visual engineering and studio facilities provided by Slap Studios LA, with distribution through our collective home for social progress in art, Slap the Network. If you have any ideas for a show you want to hear or see, or if you would like to be a guest artist on our show, please email us at info@slapthepower.com.